Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're still on island time. I'm Gregg Rosenthal in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with a surprising pair of guests, Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic and Ross Tucker of a million Ross Tucker named podcasts. Welcome, Ross.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm out here for they used to call it the broadcast boot camp.
I thought they still did. They don't call it that.
No, it's the broadcasting and media workshop. So at some point they changed. I actually went
Sounds less intense.
I went to the first one they ever had, 2007 NFL film was while I was still a player. I did a million terrible things, yet I still have a career in the media, which is nice. And I'm a huge fan of Jourdan and the work that she does. So it's very cool to be on with her.
So I think we made Greg feel really left out, Ross. We might have to apologize to him because Ross and I spent the first 5 minutes of the studio time as you were like busy trying to put a show together, fangirling over each other. So
I love it.
You're great.
And
Great.
I love like the instant pressure that this podcast has because we're taping this during broadcast boot camp's lunch break, which like started a little late. So we are on the clock here that we have to finish this show quickly. And yet we have three of the biggest honkers that I've ever seen who just like to talk a lot. I know that because, you know, Ross and I go way back. I believe we were once on like a Yes Network show together, like one or two that I was on where I was the fantasy football guy. We were definitely on some NBC Sports Channel shows together, and that network doesn't even exist anymore. And Ross had such a signature time at our friend Matt Casey's wedding that whenever my wife Emeka hears his voice doing a game on TV, she's like, "Oh, I recognize that voice. I recognize that voice from the wedding."
That's awesome.
And Jourdan, I appreciate that you looked happy to see me when we saw each other. It's been a couple weeks, which is actually the longest I believe we haven't seen each other since you've started here at NFL Daily. But I have to be real with the audience, and we're going to get going. I took a vacation this week. I was gone from Friday to Wednesday. We put up some shows that were in the can. So to me, I'm such a news person. I feel weird about it. So we are going to like try to catch up on a little bit of news. And then I'm going to hear what we're calling your ideal draft, where you go first round, second round, third round. And we're going to do this all in a quick amount of time. Let's start.
So he says.
Yeah. We don't have any options. Ross literally has to teach like the future great broadcasters of America. And I told Ross this separately, but broadcaster, like Ross has always been great and he fills a lot of different roles. But I really love seeing like his development as like a color guy on these big games because I think he is better now. He's just hitting his broadcasting prime right now.
Well, I'll just say, every time they announce that I'm like getting a bump up at CBS or whatever I'm doing, you always either text me or send a tweet. And I know that you watch every game. So it means a lot when people that I know that actually watch the games appreciate what I do. So it means more than you know that someone that I know it's not like my mom. My mom doesn't even watch. You were so good. Ross, I'm like, Mom, you didn't even watch. You just watched the first 30 seconds when I'm on camera and then you turn it to a Lifetime movie. You don't even watch me. Like Greg at least watches.
Greg's like parsing your cadence and every breath that you take. Like,
no,
Greg studies these things.
I learn things from Ross, and that's the important thing. You can tell he really does the work, and yeah, you should check out the Ross Tucker football program every day. Ross Tucker Daily. He was first in the daily game, essentially, the podcast during the season. Let's talk news, though. This is just, I don't even know if I want to call this news, but it's the most recent thing that I saw pop up. And it was TJ Watt just throwing up a peace sign on Instagram. And there's no reporting around it yet, but it does show potentially to me, Ross, I don't even know if you know about this one, that like there's something going on there between his contract situation with the Steelers. I would be a little stunned if anything popped up, but if you just took a step back, it actually wouldn't be that crazy to me for the Steelers to entertain the idea of trading TJ Watt. But we can't be given that good content, can we?
All right, hold on a second. Two things. Number one, this is one of the issues when you elect to trade for DK Metcalf and give him that much money, and you're paying a guy that much that's never done anything for your organization, whereas TJ Watt, he's been your best player pretty much since day one, and he's on the last year of his deal, and he is seeing what Myles Garrett and these other guys are getting, Max Crosby, and he said, wait a minute, Myles Garrett had a couple years left on his deal. Max Crosby had a couple years left. This is my last year. What about me? So that's number one. And Greg, I actually totally agree with you. It's not going to happen because it's not the Steeler way, but there is a universe where the Steelers recognize they're not really going anywhere unless they have a legitimate quarterback, especially in the AFC, and they trade TJ Watt for something. I don't know if that's a quarterback or picks or whatever, but they decide we're not, even if they get Aaron Rodgers this year, like what's the upside? One playoff win maybe? Like they win a playoff game? There is a scenario where people realize, let's not get Rodgers. Let's go with Mason Rudolph or a rookie. Let's trade TJ Watt and let's try to rebuild this thing from the ground up. It's just not the Steeler way.
But I think, too, that the duality of these scenarios here, we have to factor in the time, right? The time of this post offseason programming is starting for some teams with new coaches and will be starting for other teams very soon. If you are going to, say, potentially hold out of that programming, that's when you start posting things to your social media accounts, making it clear where you stand. There are two scenarios here that I think are very plausible that the Steelers probably are and should be thinking about. If you bring in Rodgers, you're like, okay, maybe we adjust TJ Watt's deal. You play on that 2025 deal. We revisit the conversation after that because we maybe get one good year out of Rodgers at a yet to be determined number. So then once you have that number in your building, you know what you can do with TJ Watt to sort of say, like, we're going to go all in for this season on the last year of your contract, revisit it after. Or, as you're saying, which I know is not the Steeler way, but you don't get Rodgers, and now you're going to go with a rookie or a Mason Rudolph, and now you think, okay, we got to clean house on some of the older players on our defensive side.
It's not what they do, but he's 30 years old, which kind of snuck up on me. There was like a sort of a hipster tape watching group last year that was like, well, if you think about it, like by the numbers and maybe what you see, you could argue that TJ Watt was the fourth best pass rusher on the Steelers last year. That on a per snap basis,
you did argue this.
Nick Herbig. Well, it was just like I am the hipster. Nick Herbig, who was awesome, and Alex Highsmith, who was awesome, and then obviously Cam Hayward, who plays a different position, but
who also, by the way, Cam had a contract situation last year.
Yep.
And he was vocal about it, and he wasn't happy, and they ended up getting that done.
I think they get it done, but it is interesting that he is at the point of his career that you could get a lot for him, and I don't know. They're an interesting team to watch over draft weekend because we've been talking about how George Pickens, I still am not totally convinced, is on this team in 2025, and so we will see. Just a situation to watch, and it reminds me a little bit of his brother, J.J. Watt, who was not above, really was sort of an original guy to use social media occasionally to send messages, either to teams or just about himself or whatever. And so why not? Why not have TJ Watt act like a wide receiver? Jack Jones cut by the Raiders. We're catching up. So like I said, we haven't done news on the show each week, so we'll fly through these quick, but I just wanted to kind of mention that Jack Jones was cut by the Raiders, who was a starting cornerback for them. And then we did kind of close the circle on the Geno contract, which people made a big deal out of. Really wasn't that much better over 2 years than Sam Darnold. But the main thing is it guaranteed him $58 million. He makes $40 million in year one.
And he's with Pete Carroll.
Yeah. It guarantees him $18 million in year two. So that was a difference between him and the Raiders and what Seattle was going to do. But it is crazy, Ross, like in an era where money and all this stuff, it really sounds like the personal connection between Geno and Pete Carroll is a big reason why they didn't really negotiate much with the Seahawks. He said Pete Carroll was calling him on a weekly basis. They were talking during last season and like coaching him up and like putting him in a better headspace because he was all messed up about his money and the lack of a contract he was getting from Seattle. And like Pete Carroll was essentially helping out the Seahawks, getting his mind right to play better for the Seahawks while he wasn't even the Seahawks coach.
Are you sure about that? Because when I read that story and when I heard Geno talking about how they talk all the time and Pete Carroll was there for him, Pete Carroll's not happy that the Seahawks moved on from him. Pete Carroll wanted to continue to coach the Seahawks. So I'm picturing Pete Carroll saying, that is disrespectful, Geno.
Yeah, the evil Kermit. He had the hoodie. He had the evil Kermit hoodie.
Not knowing he was going to go to the Raiders, but saying, how could they treat you like this? You're the reason why they got to the playoffs. They don't want to guarantee any money in the second year. I wouldn't even negotiate because Geno said that the Seahawks offered a contract and his agent didn't even counter.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to go. He wanted to leave and go somewhere else.
He wanted to go to Pete Carroll.
Tired of the year to year, right? So at least he feels secure about a second year with the Raiders, whereas the Seahawks very clearly want to do this 1 year at a time at quarterback.
Yeah, my colleague Michael Sean Dugar has a book coming out about the Legion of Boom era Seattle Seahawks. Very excited about that. But he's outlined some of this to me, whether he was there seeing it firsthand or also just talking to me about it over time. Pete Carroll is the one that had the relationships in the building, not John Schneider. And John Schneider has done some great things as a GM and has done some questionable things, particularly up front as a GM. But also the players, they connect with Pete Carroll. If there are no ties left really for you in that building, from the coaching staff to the front office, and those ties exist somewhere else, absolutely, I can see why this domino effect happens.
Right. And there are ties with the players, and he rebuilt his career there. And he said he enjoyed playing under Mike McDonald. But I think just everything coming together with him having this opportunity with Pete Carroll gives me a new team to root for. Trey McBride got big money since we last taped the live show. That was literally as we were walking out the building last time. $43 million guaranteed, 4 years, $76 million overall. I still remember him as this kind of lost sort of rookie on the All or Nothing series that only I watched. I think that was the last All or Nothing series of the Arizona Cardinals. And he was just like this fish out of water who really wasn't doing anything in his career at that point, and now one of the best tight ends in the league. The Jaguars picked up the fifth-year option for Trayvon Walker. I thought that was interesting that they did that, but they didn't do it for linebacker Devin Lloyd. I just want to test Ross here. What is your Devin Lloyd take? See, with no preparation, do you have an opinion about Devin Lloyd?
Yeah, I think that he's probably been disappointing. I think Trayvon Walker on some level has been, I think they've both been fine, but there's a reason why the GM's not there anymore. That you clearly have people to compare them to. Like, they could have taken Aiden Hutchinson and they went Trayvon Walker. Although I'll say this, Trayvon quietly has been pretty good the last couple
better
of
and
years.
better. He's gotten better and better.
And which is what the hope was with his physical ability. I think linebacker's tough for the fifth-year option because of the number involved, and I think they'd rather take their chance to see. My favorite thing about it is I think the quote was, because there's a new GM and head coach in Jacksonville, we want to get to know him better. Like, the day after they do the fifth-year option for Trayvon Walker, the Devin Lloyd is, we want to get to know him. Like, wait, I don't understand. Like, the new GM and head coach don't need to get to know Trayvon Walker better?
Also, you only have 2 more weeks to get to know him before you have to make this fifth. It's a nice way of saying we're not going to do it. See, that's why if people that were attending the broadcast boot camp should pay attention to Ross, what he did right there. I put him on the spot with a tough question. Number one, he answered it, but then he answered what would have been a better question, which is about Trayvon Walker, a more interesting question. And then he made a point about the linebacker money, which is not exactly answering that question, but is more interesting than anything I asked in the first place. And that's why he's a pro.
And somehow it still came back to you in the end,
yes,
Greg.
Well, they all do. Let's talk about a couple of just quick retirements. Terron Armstead retired from the Miami Dolphins. We thought this might be coming. It puts them in a little bit of a tough spot. They are an organization.
I don't know what they are. They don't know what they are.
What do you think they are?
I think there are 2 people on the hot seat entering this season who have to start drafting and identifying talent that could potentially be an escape hatch, a backup plan. You have to show Stephen Ross that you have a plan B this time around if things go haywire with your plan A, as it has multiple seasons in a row.
And you really can't say anything to Stephen Ross because he gets A+ across the board from the NFLPA report card. Like, hey, it's not me, Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. It's you.
You could say something if you're a Dolphins fan, which is that the Stephen Ross era has been largely disappointing. It's been a lot of 7-9, 7-10s now. It hasn't been, including any playoff wins. So that's pretty disappointing.
I always have a theory about like the Dolphins and the Chargers, especially when they were in San Diego. Those teams are always like talented, but they're oft injured. There's something about being in these incredible weather locations where I don't know what it is, but they always fall short of expectations. They're always talented, but disappointing and oft injured. I don't know. San Diego Chargers and Miami Dolphins. Now it's the LA Chargers. They're like the same team to me.
That is a great point. I do want to give some love to Terron Armstead, who surprisingly to me actually didn't make as many like all-pro teams as I expected, but that was because of the injuries throughout his career that he couldn't stay on the field. But when he was on the field, one of the best at what he did, changed that Saints team for a long time. And the Dolphins team, you could see very clear A/B testing. When Armstead was on the field the last handful of years, they were a different offense than when he wasn't. So he's a big guy to replace. But happy trails to him. Happy trails to Julio Jones, who also officially retired. You're signed.
I have a great Julio Jones story.
Okay.
He has changed the way that a lot of young assistants who have come through the Shanahan coaching tree actually coach receivers. Like his existence changed the way that they communicate their techniques, the way that they communicate their offensive scripts, their offensive plans, how they install things, because he was so like cerebrally elite at speaking this language that translated across the entire offense. And so Mike LaFleur told me this story once where he was coaching in Atlanta and, he's trying to explain this offense and like how many yards downfield he wants the receivers to run before they break inward. And he's explaining it in these terms that he had come up with, that he had coached with before, that were like the hard and fast methods, that this is how you say it. And this is, you don't explain why, and this is what you say. And Julio was sort of in the mix, being like not really doing the thing that Mike was saying very specifically in Mike's own mind. And Mike was like, I have to be wrong here. Like, I'm wrong. Because if this guy, this absolutely elite player who is so gifted and actually could translate any concept to any side of the ball to anybody, if he's doing it this way, then I can't be doing it this way. I have to do it a completely different way. And I have to change the way that I speak and the way that I think. And that has a trickle-out effect to a lot of other people that were sort of in the orbit of those buildings at the time. And I just think that's fast, like the ripple effect that one player can have, not just in the league's history, but in the way things are taught and explained within the league's history. It's
Real
cool.
quick, I just love that you brought up those two guys. A pet peeve of mine is like, I don't know why Julio did it on something I've never heard of on a Friday afternoon. And Terron did
Very
it.
Julio Jones.
Yeah, and Terron did it a Saturday night at a party. We just move on. Like, those guys had unbelievable careers, right? You played double-digit years. They both made well over $100 million. They both went to a bunch of Pro Bowls. Yet the way we are is like, oh, okay, and you just move on, right? Like, I am glad that even though it's like a week later or whatever it is now, I'm glad that we are giving those guys their due because they deserve it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Julio Jones, one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen at his peak, and he had a 6-year run where he had at least 1,400 yards in every one of those seasons. Or actually, the 6th year, he had 1,394. Led the league in receiving with 1,871 yards one year, and led the league with 1,600 yards another year, like 5 straight where he's on an all-pro team. He is an all-timer, and that catch he made in the Super Bowl to put them in field goal range from Matt Ryan, as great a throw as it was from Matt Ryan, it was an even better catch. And it should have been one of the all-time moments that any receiver has ever had in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, then what happened?
It didn't work out, but that's the thing. That's why it sucks being a receiver, because it has nothing to do with Julio Jones. Like, he did it. Forget David Tyree. I mean, you couldn't do that again. Julio Jones was all skill. Like, that was the best player at his position, making the biggest play and the biggest of moments. And because the rest of the team couldn't finish it out, like, it doesn't get remembered that way, but it gets remembered by me. He was the man. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because I did want to mention that quickly. Just a couple other items, and then we're going to take a break. The Chargers signed Trey Lance. Just thought that was interesting. So he's not going to the UFL.
I can fix him.
Yes, but he'll be the third quarterback there behind Taylor Heineke and Justin Herbert. Alan Lazard is staying with the Jets on less money. On Thursday, the Colts released Matt Gay, who was the highest paid kicker in the NFL at one point.
Super Bowl champion Matt Gay.
That's absolutely right. My daughter's favorite player for a long time, Matt Gay. Still drafts him on her fantasy
Pretty
team
sure Sean
every year.
McVay never actually knew his name. He just referred to him as Jacked Kicker.
That's rude. And you mentioned it. The offseason program has started around the league. Like, there are players lifting weights. Football is back.
I used to love the off-season program.
Why?
Because after a couple months back living in my parents' house in Pennsylvania, okay, and as much as I love that, I'm 22 to 28, I go back to Pennsylvania. I was ready to get to the city.
You could afford an apartment, though.
I could, but nobody stays around like after those couple months after the season. It's like the facility's a dead zone, right? So I'd go home. It was great. My mom would make me meals and I'd go out and whatever.
The Tommy DeVito
right.
life.
So then I'd go back and first of all, you get like $180 a day or whatever it is, which I know that sounds like nothing. But when you're in your 20s, I would think about all my buddies were paying $50 to go to Gold's Gym. I'm getting $180 to do what I have to do anyway, which is work out for lifting for football. And I would go there and have breakfast. I would have lunch. I would pack up whatever lunch I didn't have. I would pack up something else. That would be my dinner.
Elite.
So three delicious, healthy meals, getting paid for that. I remember,
unless you were with the Cardinals and they would
per
make
diem king.
Yes,
That's what we call
They
it.
would make you pay.
Per diem
They would
and I
king.
remember, so Greg, you guys will appreciate this real quick. When I re-signed with New England, 1-year deal, 2006, okay? My wife and I had just gotten married. So we're both like 26. So she moves up. They have some apartment complex in Cumberland, Rhode Island. So my wife, who's very much a working woman, for that year, she says she was a real housewife of Cumberland, Rhode Island, right? All you do is lift weights Monday through Thursday. That's it. Every weekend, Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard,
Hell yeah.
Nantucket, Newport. We're both from Pennsylvania. We're never living here again. It was unbelievable.
Oh,
it was like the whole off season. It was one of the greatest 6-month stretches of my life. Lift weights Monday through Thursday and then have incredible weekends. We're on Martha's Vineyard. My sister had just had my niece Caroline. We're singing Sweet Caroline karaoke. The place is going crazy. We had no idea that was the Red Sox theme song. My wife and I. So we're looking at each other like, we are awesome. They love us. They love us. We're the greatest thing. And like, we had no idea it's the Red Sox like 7th inning stretch song or something.
I wonder if Ross ever voyaged to your restaurant where you
The sea shanty where I was a waiter
and did
in Martha's Vineyard
did,
from
like,
2001.
hallucinogenics.
Yeah, I don't like to repeat that story too often here, but I did catch myself like staring out into the boats on the water.
Beauty.
And then another waiter was like, "Dude, you've been staring out for like 30 seconds. What are you doing?"
Maybe during that time,
No.
Ross came in and ate and then left.
It was about five. Yeah, it was a little bit before Ross was there. I'm a little older than Ross, and it was a choice, Ross, by the way, for you to still be living at your parents'. I don't cast any aspersions on it, but you didn't have to do that.
No, so when I was 22 with the Redskins, Washington now, the week after the season ended, I went in to lift weights. I thought it was like college. The lights were turned off. No coaches were there.
What a
no
metaphor.
I didn't know that you didn't stay. Nobody told me that you leave until the off-season program starts. I couldn't even get anybody to spot me. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going back to Pennsylvania, and I still had the apartment in Virginia, but like, what am I going to do by myself there? You know,
that's absolutely fair. I don't really know what that's like lifting weights. And hell, they're doing meetings and stuff now too. So we got Ben Johnson in the room with Caleb Williams. They're doing meetings. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to do a little exercise to find out some of Ross and Jourdan's favorite players right after this. All right, back on NFL Daily, here with a wild tandem, Ross Tucker, Jourdan Rodrigue.
It works. I feel like
absolutely works. It's one of my favorite things about doing this show is just seeing the different combinations and bringing together smart football people. And that's why I had an exercise that I gave you two, which is that we're going to do an ideal draft. So it's a mock draft. It's really Jourdan's idea, and I can see the look that she's giving me now. I just was trying to say.
It was my idea that Greg opted out of.
I am opting out of this. I didn't feel like I had good answers, and there's not a lot of time here, and so I thought I would just listen to you guys. You explain it then.
Yeah, this is an ideal draft for a team about whom you can describe the circumstances within which they enter the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I found
Greg had told me it was a generic team.
It could be just generic.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I did. I did a generic,
Okay.
a generic anonymous team. I just put a couple different parameters around it because I wanted to highlight the people that I most like in this draft.
Yeah.
So truly a selfish exercise.
Okay.
So I'm learning very well from you, Greg, honestly. But yes, and so we only wanted to go rounds 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So why don't we kick it off with you, Ross?
Sure, yeah. I'm going Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. It's the best three right now.
I was like, dang.
I mean, people are shocked.
One way we have lost the thread of communication.
People were shocked that Abdul Carter was still there in my mock draft in the third.
I know it is tricky. You have to like think, where am I drafting round 2, round 3? But just somewhat realistic.
All right, so what I will say is the two guys that jumped out to me in the first round that I couldn't possibly be higher on, and I know they already get talked about a lot, right? I still don't think we talk about Travis Hunter as much as we should.
Thank you.
Okay. You know, I had Fran Duffy, who you know, Greg, he came on one of my shows this week, the Ross Tucker podcast. He, in his database, evaluated 2 different players, Travis Hunter, offensive player, Travis Hunter, defensive player. Both of them were among his top 5 prospects. If he was 2 different human beings, okay? Todd McShay, who came on the Ross Tucker podcast this week, has him as the number 1 receiver, number 1 corner. I just can't emphasize enough how nuts that is, okay? I called Colorado State this past year.
Fun game.
It was, and you know, going to Boulder for his practice, you ever see like a center fielder that when there's like a line drive or a fly ball, just the graceful way that they make the catch, or like an NBA player that like when they get to the rim for a layup or a finger roll, it just looks beautiful.
Floats.
He might have done that 4 or 5 times in one practice where he's like double covered and jumps earlier than the 2 DBs or I just thought, this guy's unbelievable. I do think he'll play both ways in the NFL. I think he has to be in every defensive back meeting. I would say after offensive line, communication is the second most important in the secondary. You have to be in those meetings, right? So he'd be a full-time corner. Now, because it's interesting, because I've heard people say, well, if the Browns take him, maybe they need him at receiver. Or if the Patriots take him, they need him at receiver. That's really interesting, because then you can't really put him on defense, but people think that he might be more ready to contribute on offense. My point is, I know he gets talked about a lot. I know he won the Heisman. The guy was playing like 160 snaps a game. The guy can't possibly be in every meeting. We've never seen this before or even close to it. I would say I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I live right near Penn State. I think Abdul Carter is fantastic. In my mind, you cannot take Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter. You cannot do it because of his ability to affect both sides of the ball.
It's why I've never believed that he was somehow going to get to 4 at the Patriots.
No.
It just
no way.
Just was never. It's kind of a 2-person draft at that level, and Cam Ward is thrown in there because he's the quarterback. So they're picking 4th in like a 3-person draft essentially, but it just never make any sense that he would fall past multiple teams. And I still wouldn't be surprised if the Browns took him at 2.
My biggest fear for Travis Hunter has nothing to do with the caliber quality of a prospect or player he is. By the way, also, half of those games at altitude, which also people don't talk about.
It's a good
conditioning, all of those snaps, and that's hard. The air is quite thin.
I never thought of that. I'm going to steal that from now on.
Please do.
The draft.
It's yours.
Yeah.
It's yours. But my biggest concern is that an NFL team, particularly the ones that frequently pick in the top 10, top 12 of the draft, that team, I worry, will fail Travis Hunter because they will not have designed the appropriate and correct infrastructure internally where he's going to spend his time in meetings, how he's going to onboard twice as much information in half the time so that he can go out and execute and play on the same cadence and schedule as everybody else. Like, I worry about the organizational clarity and infrastructure for a player of his quality and caliber. I don't want him to drop. I just selfishly want to see him go to a place that's got its stuff together.
It needs to be with an organization that has a multi-year plan. So you're talking about, and I've heard this a lot, and it makes sense, like the amount of meeting time that he is going to need to truly master either position, but especially
or
cornerback.
Thinking about how you teach it in a different way.
Right,
I'm not saying go and and separate
it also could be
meetings.
like, here's our plan for year one. We're going to have you focus
Yeah.
on getting better and better at this, and you'll have the meeting time. Year two, you're now going to have all that experience, and you're going to have a longer off season because you're not preparing for the draft to, okay, and then we're going to add this parts of your game into year two and convince him and have a and that can only happen with a organization that has stability.
And to Jordan's point, whether it's the Browns at 2 or the Giants at 3, they don't care at all about 2026. I can
Right.
assure you.
Yeah.
Those guys need to win in 2025. So honorable mention, my other first-round guy would have been Tyler Warren from Penn State. I watched his high school video because I was doing some Penn State media at the time. To watch him at quarterback, and then they would like get near the red zone. They'd put the backup quarterback in. They would put Tyler at receiver and throw him fade balls. Like, he wears number 44 because his dad told him to because of John Riggins. Like, I couldn't love Tyler Warren more. Like, you had me at John Riggins. You know what I mean? Okay, so those are my first round picks. The two guys in the second round, believe it or not, DBs. Okay. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. I've had multiple people tell me he's the best corner they've ever seen at Notre Dame. Best corner, at least in the last 25 years at Notre Dame. Got hurt this past year. Now, he hasn't even worked out. He's going to work out like 2 days before the draft because of the injury. But if you can get a guy mid-second round that people thought was a first-round pick and is the best corner at Notre Dame in 25 years, that says something to me. The other guy I like there would be the safety out of Texas, Andrew Makuba. I'm a huge fan of guys that, A, take the ball away. Like, he did not do it at Clemson, but he did do it at Texas. But also the safety nickel versatility. Think Gardner Johnson. I've seen that firsthand in Philly, the value of having a guy that has nickel corner-like skills but can play safety. So those are my 2 second-round guys. In the third round, I like 2 jacks. Okay. The first guy, Jack Besh, the receiver.
Senior Bowl standout.
I'm calling this right now, okay? Jack Besh, first of all, we all know his older brother, Tiger, Princeton football player like me, passed away tragically. I'm calling my shot right now. The LA Rams, Jordan Rodrigue's LA Rams are drafting Jack Besh, and he's going to win the 3rd annual Cooper Cup, Puka Nacua. How did he fall to the 3rd round, and how did Sean McVay get him? I watch him, and I'm like, this guy's like going to be like Puka Nacua. Like, he's going to go to the Rams.
I don't understand why he's going to fall that far. And you're right that is sort of where he's getting projected.
3rd round,
but I think the more people watch him, the takeaway from the tape is all what you said. And it's typical of this draft. And that's why I think you can credibly say that's your ideal 3rd round pick, because he's a believable 3rd round pick, because that's where the strength of this receiver class is, that there's so many that some of them aren't going to get taken in the top 50, 55 picks, even though it seems like they deserve it. So that might push the first round wide receivers down because teams are just going to wait until round 2, 3.
Yeah.
The other Jack
please.
is just Jack Sawyer. Those guys make it in the NFL. And I know the Sam Hubbard thing has gone a million times. He reminds you of Sam Hubbard, but he does. Like, guys like that, he's going to find a way to be an above average starter in the NFL, Jack Sawyer.
A
lot of disagreement on those, though. There are some people that watch Jack Sawyer's tape and just say that is not an NFL player. That is a late day 3 undrafted type of pick that's getting this
But it's
Ohio
his
State
ideal.
college
It's
thing.
his ideal pick.
So I'm just
So interesting.
throwing that out there.
He was like a top 5 high school prospect.
Yeah. All right, let's do
I'll
yours.
rip
We
through
have
mine.
to run out of here.
We've got to let Ross go, I think, but I want to make sure to rip through mine too. So mine was for a team with a late career veteran quarterback on the roster. Wow, who could that be? Picking outside of the top 10. Round 1, Matthew Golden from Texas.
Ooh.
He has been in a couple different schemes, which I like. He also knows he's like the perfect player to exploit horizontal and vertical space on the field because he's used as a motion player. He often was the Z, but he can do a lot of different things on the perimeter as well. And I know the knock on him is his size, but I think speed helps with size deficiencies in some ways. I think if you are looking at potentially replacing your quarterback in the next couple of years, which the team I'm talking about is, then you want to make sure that you're maximizing the veteran years of that quarterback while also building a foundation for the younger player. So round 2, I've got Tyler Shuck from Louisville. I think he's a really gifted
quote
thrower.
unquote younger player.
Well, so I don't give I don't care about the old thing. That's the thing.
Oh!
That's the thing. I wrote this out. So and I was thinking about this. I was getting really fired up when I was doing my notes on this. Probably because I've spent too much time with the Rams scouting department because they do not care about old players or short arms. So he throws well on the move, and I know he could be 26 or 27 by the time he starts. I don't care. I like he's seen a ton of football. I like that he's only started, 8 or less games until the final year of his college career, which is not the same type of wear and tear on the body that a quarterback.
Yeah, but why didn't he start? Because he's always hurt.
Playing a ton of time. I think if you can get the medicals cleared and you have a player who's not going to take the type of abuse that we sometimes do get worried about with older prospects, I think that that's a fit. I like that he's seen stuff. I like that he understands multiple schemes and multiple things. And so I think that the right team with a 2-year plan, maybe with their current starter, is going to gravitate toward him. And for that reason, also, if you're looking at a long-term replacement, one of my draft crushes is in the 3rd round, Boston College offensive tackle, Ozzie Trapilo.
Oh,
and
going deep.
He's a gap scheme guy and a zone scheme guy. He's a fit. He's a starter. He also is super disciplined. No penalties in his 3 years as a starter.
Wow.
Which I know you gotta love that.
That's hard to imagine.
I feel like you've got, and he's on the right tackle.
You know
too,
what that
which is
reminds me of? That's like someone that has a 4.0 GPA. I'm like, you might have been studying a little bit too much. Like, do you really want a 4.0 GPA in college? Do you really want to never have one penalty? Give me one unnecessary rough.
Like if
But I think- but that's why
you're not getting enough fouls in like a youth basketball game, you're doing it wrong.
That's why you got to get him and sit him as a swing guy behind somebody who's already playing, and you got to make him mean, a little bit meaner. You got to make him a little bit.
I'm
nicer.
feeling mean right now because we got to end this thing. Ross has got to go. We got to get out of here. That's it for this show. I loved having you guys in, and I love the intensity which happened with just having a deadline on here. But they're saying like we got to get the important
I hear the
broadcast boot
music.
camp people. Let's do it. That was it for today's show. Just a little extra for you. We will be back on Monday. We're going to be talking defensive draft prospects with Ollie Connolly. I think he likes some of the same guys that Ross does, including Makuba. And yes, when teams are back in the building lifting weights again, I believe that's the original football is back.